Yes, this week we are looking at rethinking faith. Why we thought to do this is because chances are, after you leave today maybe or this week, you are going to go back to your workplaces, your schools, your universities, and you're going to meet people that think Christianity is a load of nonsense. I've spent the last 7 years of my life going to barber appointments, to meeting new people, and the moment that I say to them, I'm a pastor, I kid you not, it shuts people down immediately. I've had to learn new ways to communicate the way that I do my job. I find that when I say I'm a chaplain, that definitely connects with a lot of people who are Australian but not necessarily religious, because we've probably all had a chaplain at school that we valued. So this week, I think what I want to do here is spend some time reflecting on the importance of our faith, but also to work from a bit of a different way. Now, if you came for Sabbath school, you would have noticed we kind of looked at some of the arguments that get thrown at us, and you did a marvelous job for the people that were here, just trying to wrestle through that, think through what, how we would respond if someone said to us, the Bible is just a load of fairy tales, or Jesus, like he's just a dude, who cares? He's been dead 2,000 years, like who cares about him? Like we would think of ways that we would respond, but I can guarantee you, if you're in the workplace, people are not going to be nice and cordial like Dave. It would generally be in the context of a joke being said, or they'll hear that you go to church on Saturday or on the weekend and say, are you serious? Like, why? So the reality is, you're not going to have these kind of special moments where we can slow down and have an hour to talk. Sometimes it's on an elevator, sometimes on a plane. But what I want to encourage you is that there is another way to come about this. If I was doing this talk about 50 years ago, I would have probably come at you with a bit of, trying to prove the truth that I want you to understand. I would come at you trying to give you all those kind of arguments, and then I would hope that in the end, you would say, well, you're right. I believe that too, and you'd start coming to church every Saturday. Reality is, I could do that today with my mates at work, and they would hear everything I say. Maybe they would nod out of politeness, but they'll just leave and never end up coming to church. I've done Bible studies with people who I thought were on the journey, and I was sharing my faith with them, and then they get excited, what seems to be excitement, but then it's just nothing. It just dissipates into thin air. So really we need to come at this a little bit differently today if we're going to share our faith in 2024. If we want to do it in a way that is meaningful and that hopefully leads to them discovering Jesus for themselves, then we have to come about this all differently. So today I'm going to share with you a little bit of an introduction, but I just wanted to, tease. I don't know how many of you get to stay here for the whole week, but if you're driving in and you're kind of debating whether you should make that 50-minute trip on Tuesday night, I hope that some of these topics would speak to you and may be a good resource for you when you go back into the workplace or when you go back to school. So for example, tomorrow night, I want to take on the topic or the challenge that you'll often hear from people who say, oh, you're a Christian? Oh, wow. Oh, that's not really for me. Thank you. That's nice for you, like it's some sort of problem, some sort of disease. So we got to come across that. What are they saying when they say that? And how do we grapple with that? How do we move forward from that? So we'll probably cover that tomorrow. I heard some great discussion around the resurrection, and I could hear some of you wanting to figure out what this is all about. So probably Wednesday night will be the night to come if you want to delve into some of the stuff that relates to the resurrection, the fact that we talk about somebody getting up from the dead. If you were literally coming in here for the first time and that was the first thing you heard, did that guy just say somebody got up from the dead? I didn't know these guys follow zombies. That's actually what people think when we talk about the resurrection. So we need to grapple with some of this. So that's the journey that I want to take you on. There's a few other topics that will be of value, particularly when we looked at Jesus in the Bible. Those topics will come up too. But also, one thing that I often like to share with people is the calling. Have you ever wondered to yourself, what does it mean to be called by God? Or what is God calling me to do in my life? I've heard some people talk about this and go, I don't know what God wants me to do. Well, probably next Saturday or next Sabbath, we're going to explore this topic. And I actually want to share a different perspective because sometimes we talk about it in very strange ways. which I think is not the best way to deal with God calling us. So as we go along, what I want to do here, I want to take us on a bit of a different journey. I want to show that following Jesus is more about just stating what the truth is, and it's actually about, is it believable? Is it livable? And does it actually matter? Because instinctively, as you will see tomorrow, when somebody says, that's not for me, immediately they've checked out of it works or it matters. It's just a thing you're doing on the weekend. That's not for me. I'd rather be at the footy or down at the pub. And so that's some of the stuff we need to talk about. And I hope that as you walk away from this, the end conclusion is that it is good, that it is true, that it is beautiful. Now, I know I'm making a lot of promises, but again, I hope that we can get to that place. Now, let me see if I can adjust this, because nope, this is as high as it gets.
Pull it up.
Amazing. I heard your word and I believed. When I was in my second year at Noosa, so this was about 3 years ago, I met a man by the name of Sasha. Sasha and his family had moved from Germany and migrated to Australia. They've visited quite a few times, and something was very attractive about Australia. Particularly the southeast Queensland area. There's beautiful beaches, there's lovely people. It's just the place to be. And it was interesting when he told me why they chose the particular school, the one that I was working at, Noosa Christian College. Why they chose that school? Well, they said they showed their kids the website and the kids loved the look of the school, and here they are. I thought to myself, that is a big step to make. I don't know if I'd be ready to let my kids decide where we're migrating to, but they did this. Now, it was interesting, as I called Tanya up, this is Sasha's wife. Tanya told me that she had been at that moment praying and talking to God and saying, I'm feeling so alone in this new country. I don't know what to do. It just feels like I'm stuck here. My kids, my husband are happy to be here, but what do you want me to do? She tells me that moments later, I called her up. And I said to her, hey, Tanya, I'd love to come visit you guys. I know you're new to the area, new to our school. Can I come and see you? And she said, yes, please, absolutely. I was just praying and God sent you. And I thought, wow, that is not a usual way that I have people answer the phone call, right? Especially, sometimes just my wife telling me to hurry up and get home so I can change the kids' nappies. So I'm used to all sorts of phone calls. But when I arrived to visit, I noticed that Sasha walked into the room, took the kids and kind of just hung out there while Tanya wanted to sit down with me and discuss the Bible. She had been on a personal journey when she moved from Germany, that she was starting to think about her faith and she wanted to give Christianity a go. Well, this is the interesting thing. Tanya and I continued to sit and do Bible studies and chat, but Sasha stayed in the room. And then every now and then he would come out at the beginning or at the end of these meetings and he'd come talk to me. And, it would kind of be the usual stuff. Xbox, he loves his Xbox. There'd be always a lot of shoes on the ground. I could relate with that, so we'd talk about our Nikes and things like that. But it was always just this surface level kind of conversation, right? That's the normal Western way. We keep things on the surface level. We wouldn't want to get deeper. But at some point, it was probably about 6 months afterwards, Sasha started to come out and he would talk to me and say things like, how do you deal with making big mistakes? How do you handle the problems of the world? I see the stuff that's going on in the news. How do you deal with that? And so I would just kind of listen to his questions, share a little bit, but I wouldn't push anything. I would just talk to him. Sasha told me about how growing up, he had no Christian influence, and actually the first attractive idea he had ever heard was the atheist ideals. No God, no values, nothing like that. He remembers getting a Bible at school. He was 17. He received a Bible from the class, from the teacher, walked out of the class, placed it in the bin, and walked off. I said to him, bro, did you feel guilty? I would feel so much inner guilt if I had a Bible and I dropped it in. He said, absolutely not. Guilty? You got to be kidding. I felt like a hero. I felt like I was the man. I didn't have to worry about what some book told me I had to do. I didn't have to worry about boundaries. I do what I want. He told me a lot of stories, and it actually as I listened to them, it always reinforced within me my Christian values and beliefs. But to him, they were just evidence to the fact that there is no God. See, Sasha is a bartender, and bartenders see the worst of humanity, and sometimes, I guess, the best of humanity when they've had enough to drink, right? Like it brings out that liquid courage that you talk about. So he'd tell me all sorts of stories, but at the end of it, he would always end by saying, I'm a good person, I do what I can, I enjoy my life. But as he would shortly open up to me, what I had started to discover and see in Sasha is that while we could talk about Nikes and Xbox and he has a good time and he's doing the best to be a good person, there was still something missing. There was still an ache there, something that he was struggling with. And he wanted to know why. That's why he came out of the room to talk to me all those times. As we're going to look at this week, I want you to reflect and imagine that as we explore Scripture together and as we explore these kind of beliefs, that you're a car. See, I think in cars, ladies, I hope that's okay. Guys that don't like cars, I hope that's okay. My dad's a mechanic, or was a mechanic before he got sick, and so the reality is I've grown up around cars, and actually sometimes I was very ashamed of my car, of my family, and of what happened, because my yard looked like the junkyard. It had all the cars of all sorts. Nowadays, I kind of look back and go, I'm kind of glad I got to see this, because all sorts would come through. If you know what an AMX Rambler is, one of those would come through. If you know what a Pontiac Firebird is, one of those would roll on through. Toyota Corollas, yeah, not so exciting. Holden SS Commodores. I've even seen Lamborghinis rock up. But a lot of them were this grade, some were really amazing and some were just trash. And I remember watching some cars come through that needed a complete, total rebuild. That means you just rip everything out and you completely find the problem and start again in the engine. Some came through just for a service, just to get topped up, and we're back to normal. And you know what made me feel embarrassed about my house was that some of those cars rolled in through, got pulled apart, and then they stayed there. Just pulled apart, just engine parts everywhere. And you'd look at our house and it's like the wreckers. I hope that as we go through this today, and this week, that ultimately you want to become in an optimal and be in an optimal place in your walk with God and in your life. When you come through here, as I share some stuff with you, I hope it does challenge some of you. If you're a doubter and you're starting to see some things kind of unravel, don't just let the parts fall where they are and just make a mess in your life. What is the thing that is guiding and pulling it all together? Let the engine be rebuilt, if you will. Let it come back together, and as it does, I hope something will hum in your life, something will work, you'll reach that optimal place. Because isn't it at the end of the day, isn't each of our goal just to be living the best life we can live? No one wants to live a miserable, broken, suffering existence. So I want you to invite you to rethink, yes, but also to recalibrate, to rebuild, and then to discover growth as a result. Now, here's something that you probably won't get excited about me telling you about, but life can be boring. Life can be boring. I remember reading a book by an author by the name of Charles Taylor, and Charles Taylor made this point that our Western world, Australia, Canada, America, England, all these places that are guided by Western ideals, often feel boring. And what he said is actually that the house is like this haunted mansion. We walk into the house and we see that there's what appears like this beautiful home that we can live in, but there's no one there. God once was a very important part of our ideals, but now it's just this empty shell, what's left over. Today, many people, when we talk to them, we'll hear them say the line, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. There's a lot of values that we hear. People come to Christian schools, and if there's teachers in the room, you'll relate to this, that when people bring their kids to their schools, the main thing that they say, especially Christian schools, is that they want their kids to have good values. They want to hear of the good messages and hear all this. But I remember one time sharing about the cross for the first time at a chapel and actually having pushback from a parent. So there's an interesting divide. We have this understanding that there are some good things that God and Christianity offers, but it's also very foreign and something that we avoid And our world just feels like a haunted mansion. That's how Charles Taylor describes it. You know that there's someone there, there's something there, but it just looks empty. That we're trying to figure it out. Now, it's interesting, as you meet people, you'll discover that their stories are often the same. They'll tell you of all the amazing things that can happen in their life, but there is still something lacking. I was caught by attention by a song, and I don't know if I should be admitting this because it's not the most amazing band or singer, and I didn't answer it when I was asked earlier, but the song was Harry Styles' As It Was. It came on the radio. This is 2022, so a couple of years back. And I was curious because the song went like this. In this world, it's just us. You know it's not the same as it was. You've heard this song, I bet. Yeah, okay. A few people admitting it. Everyone else trying not to make themselves look not cool. It was interesting. As you listen to the rest of the album, there's a lot of songs on there lamenting about the way the world is. Then a question comes back and it says, what kind of pills are you on? Nobody's coming to help. Can you hear the two sides of the dilemma? There's this problem that we face, but then there's this reminder, you're on your own. Do it your own way. Try and figure it out yourself. In an interview, and I went a bit deeper because I found it very interesting, Harry actually told about the fact that his parents divorced at 7. And this is what led to what he believes, many of his self-destructive habits, whether it might be involving drugs or alcohol or other things. But what he often describes is this yearning that there could be someone coming to help, but the reminder always comes to him, nobody's coming to help. Is that the experience of many an Australian person today? Is that the experience of someone here today? We are facing some challenge and we feel that we're doing it all alone, that there is no hope. That is the experience of many people that I have met and no doubt you'll meet. And the reality comes back to this, that everything in this Australian context and in the West is, well, you shouldn't really complain about it because you've got everything you need. You've got enough money, you've got enough food, you've got a roof over your head. Okay, you've got problems, family struggles or anything, but just deal with it. That's the mentality that comes back to us. Everything boxes us in. And I know for myself that the 9 to 5 humdrum feeling, going to school, going to work, we get over that very quickly. I can guarantee you all the year 11 and 12s in this room, probably even the year 10s if there's some of you in here, you're ready to get out of school. Yeah, you're ready to run out of those doors as soon as the time comes that they say you can. But then you end up in the reality of another mundane reality of 9 to 5. Go to work, make money, pay the bills, do it over and over again. And you'll get a weekend and you'll have a great time resting it off, and you'll keep doing that for the rest of your 40 years, and then you'll retire and die. What an inspiring talk. David's sweating in the back. Why is he telling them this? But this is what it results in. That's the one side. It's the basic reality of life. But then on the other side, we have this yearning for more. One of the biggest areas of entertainment right now is sci-fi and fantasy. Whether it's Lord of the Rings or Stranger Things, or whether it's Harry Potter or Star Wars, we're all attracted to these magical worlds with amazing things happening in them. Why? Because we have so been boxed into this reality of all there is fill your stomach with food, do your job, get everything done, and then end up in a wooden coffin at the end. We want something more. Can't you feel it? There's got to be something more than just this. There's got to be something more than the 9 to 5. For many, people look to places like entertainment. Like Harry Styles, they look to substances. There's always this desire to cover or to get away from the deep, painful, existential reality that there is something missing. There's got to be something more. Many of you have heard of the two worlds, Narnia, the Chronicles of Narnia, or Lord of the Rings. But did you realize that the authors of these two books were actually best mates? Tolkien was 39 and Lewis was 32 when they were teaching together at Oxford. Lewis taught English literature and Tolkien taught Anglo-Saxon history. Would have been riveting classes, I bet. But this is the cool thing. They would stay up till 3 a.m. in the morning, and they would just hang out and chat and talk about everything. Oh, I would probably find myself very excited being in that room. You know, Tolkien wrote this amazing book about the one ring that must be destroyed against all evil. And it's interesting. How does the story start? Frodo is a little person, a hobbit, in a very common, mundane existence at the Shire, until something enters the picture and challenges all that, and he must go into and brave the unknown. Sounds like a very common experience for all of us. We're sick of the mundane, we want more. Frodo resists it, but he goes further. But it's interesting why Tolkien wrote this story as he did. It actually started in the trench warfare of World War I. He watched what was happening, and he actually started forming some of his Elvish languages in those trenches. And this guy has invented languages, fake languages, just for his story. A genius, an absolute genius. No wonder he was teaching at Oxford. And in one of Lewis's and Tolkien's conversation, which Lewis talks about, he remarked to Tolkien that the beauty that he sees when he goes traveling never feels enough. He'll go and visit a beautiful place in Italy, and then he'll want to go and do more. He wants to see another place, another vista. He would read a book, but he never feels that completeness. No book finishes it for him. He has to go to the next thing. And he always has this desire to escape death. But here's the problem. Clive Staples Lewis considered himself an ardent atheist. He considered himself as someone that believed there was no God. And he struggled to understand why he had these eternal longings of his heart. He would read some of the myths that talk about stories of sacrifice and someone giving their life for other people. And he kept saying, why does this mysteriously move me? Something was rumbling in Lewis's mind long before he met Tolkien. But when Tolkien heard him talk about this, he actually asked him the question, is there more to this? And the reality was he just said that they're all myths. Myths are fake stories, right? They're things you don't believe. They're fairy tales. Tolkien responded to him and said, what if all myths are not lies? What do you mean, Tolkien? What do you mean that they're not lies? What if they're telling us of a greater reality? Why do you think it gets makes a lot of money and it gets people very excited to go and watch the Avengers Endgame? Is there any nerds in the room? I'm just checking here. So you know what I'm talking about. Okay, just checking that you know what I'm talking about. Why does it get people excited? And why do people spend money going to watch, not even once, but twice or 3 times, I'm one of those people, to go and watch Avengers Endgame, knowing how it ends, and getting ready to watch him sacrifice his life for the good of the universe? Why does that thrill us and get us so impassioned? Why do we even shed a tear? Okay, now I'm getting very honest here. for Tony Stark sacrificing himself. Think of all the stories you've ever read or watched which are fake. Why does it speak to us? Why does it inspire us? Lewis was asking this question. And when Lewis's father died in 1929, around the same time, it had a profound impact on him. He described that there must be more to all of this. There must be something that explains this feeling. Why even think about it? Why even think about it? What does this all mean for you and me? You may be a believer like Tolkien. And I want to actually encourage you that the thing that helped Lewis move forward and delve down in these questions is because there was a Tolkien in the room. What if you're the Tolkien in your workplace? What if you're the Tolkien at your school? Sometimes we think we need to be the majority in a room, but I can guarantee you, as long as there's one in the room, there can be some powerful impact on people's lives. What are your friends struggling with right now? What if they're like Harry, trying to figure out what it's like to lose parents? Not sure what's happening to dad, not sure what's happening to mum. What if you are the one person that can come into their life and speak to them and help them? Maybe you're Lewis. You think that all of it is just fake and myths. But what if you were to just delve into a little bit more? There was a question put to me when I started exploring my own faith, and this was the question that Pastor Joseph said to me. If it's all fake, then you can do this. if it's all true, you can also do this. If you come to the Bible and to faith and you explore it and you give it a real good crack and it turns out it's all fake, well, guess what? You've just solved it. You've actually dealt with this problem. You've realized it's all fake and you can put it to the side and move on with your life and have a great 40, 50 years or whatever you have left to live. But if it was fake, or rather if it was true, you claimed that it was fake and you missed out on something, wouldn't you feel robbed? Isn't that just the ultimate FOMO? That you could have experienced something amazing, but because you just passed it up or said, that's my parents' religion, that's just my friend at work's kooky idea, that's just fairy tales. If you just chose to do that, but then missed out that this was actually something real in it, man, what a miss. I want to challenge you to be exploring, to ask questions. One of the smartest person in England at that time chose to explore. And he asked the questions, is it believable? Does it matter? Can you live this out? These are the kind of questions he started looking at his own belief system. Does atheism actually make sense of the beautiful surroundings? Does it actually make sense of the books that I'm reading? The stories and the powerful experiences I've had in my life, those highs and those lows. Does it actually help me get through the difficult times? That's the kind of questions that he started asking. Sasha started asking those same questions. He told me, and I actually sat down to interview him before I came here because I wanted to share his story. And I asked him, tell me what it was like before, and then tell me what it was like after. He told me that before, even though he had a good life, he was making good money, he had a family, he felt incredibly insecure about life, depressed about his job and the world. I mean, you'd have to be pretty depressed to go day in and day out watching people get drunk, smashed, punch-ups, cheating, whatever. He would feel an injustice in this world. So how did he deal with it? Well, he started smoking marijuana. And for 16 years prior to me meeting him, he was smoking MJ. He was taking a lot of it too, every night. This was his escape. It's interesting, Karl Marx, who probably none of you have heard of, but Karl Marx said that religion is the opium of the people. Basically, people go to church to cover up and make an illusion on their life and to deal with their problems this way. But the reality is, what's the alternative to the challenges of this world? Well, I've seen people go and smoke weed and take drugs, and that's how they escape it. They think that Friday night booze-ups is the way to deal with the problems. That's their little escape. So when Karl Marx said religion is the opium of the people, I think he missed the point. I think we're all looking for an opium. We're all looking for something to cover up that pain. Now, this is the sad part. Sasha had 2 children, and he was married, but he continued to smoke weed every night. And this is how he describes the drug to me. He calls it the drug of removing commitment. It takes away that desire to do anything or to progress in anything. So it might appear harmless at first, but the reality is it just saps you of any energy and strength to go and do something good in this world, to go and further yourself. And so 16 years, around and around, he would smoke every single night. He told me about how Tanya was starting to think about her faith, how she was wanting to take this seriously. She's even telling me on the phone and wanting to sit down and do Bible studies. And he would get a personal joy of sitting down with her, debating her and telling her she's completely wrong. Clearly there is no God. And often he would win the argument, he would tell me. But of course she'd be the one sitting there in the corner crying afterwards. But things were starting to change. Things were starting to change. As we discussed the Bible together, he started praying himself. Not telling anybody. He didn't even tell me. I mean, we were just still talking about Xbox and Nike shoes. But he was starting to process what's happening. He could see his wife. He could see the way he's treating her. He could see me. He was talking to me and hearing about my worldview and what I believed. And as he started to pray, he describes it to me like this. He felt calm. He had a peace of mind. And he actually gave up the desire to be the hero. He said to me, I don't need to be the hero anymore. He was learning to trust God. And actually, he found himself not feeling guilty or insecure anymore. And then the most amazing thing happened. 16 years of addiction to marijuana, he decided to throw the bag away, and he's not touched it since. when I listen to Sasha's story, and I listen to many other stories like it, what I discover is that the life of Jesus, the message of the gospel, does it work in a person's life? Absolutely. I can see it. It is believable because it works. When Lewis decided to become a Christian, it happened around the time that his father died, around the time of his conversations with Tolkien. He said this: you can't go on getting very serious pleasure from music, and we've had some amazing pleasure from the music that's coming out. Do you notice it start to thrill your heart? Well, reality is, this is what Lewis says, that's just a pure illusion. It's just like your nervous system is irrationally conditioned to like it. That's what you do when you remove God. And so as he starts processing all these questions, and he even hears Tolkien say that there is a true myth, which to you go, what in the world does that mean? How can a true lie exist? What he means is that there is a story with which all the stories are based. And once we understand that story, it changes the way we see everything. And of course, Tolkien then took him through and started to explain to him, hey, Lewis, there is a reason why sacrificial stories hit your heart, because there was one sacrifice that happened that really mattered. An eternal sacrifice made by the Son of God. Lewis said that struck him so hard that he continued to think about it long after their 3 a.m. powwow. A few years later, he says that it was a new day. He had come to see the world differently, and he writes this. He says, I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun has risen, not because I can see it, but by it I can see everything else. Can you hear what Lewis's heart is saying? He now looks at the hills, the same hills, just grass and dirt, but now he sees beauty in them. He sees the Swiss Alps and he sees the Creator. He looks at people and sees value in them. He sees the potential in each person. So here's the question to you. Does belief in God work? Reflect on Sasha's life. Reflect on Lewis's life. Does belief work? Well, the question is clearly answered by it helps make sense of the world around you. You need something that can bring everything together. Isn't it just wild how many things get thrown at you? Just turn on Netflix and try to get through there and realize there is so much content that you will never get through it all. And that causes me to feel like something's missing, like I need to catch up or I'm going to be left behind. But instead, when we believe in God, that He is eternal, then we can recognize that we can have stability. There is something to hold on to. Furthermore, there's new possibilities ahead of you. For Sasha, who was addicted for 16 years to marijuana, when he discovered that there was a God and that he could put his faith in Him, there was a new possibility. Instead of him having to rush his kids off to bed so that he could light up a joint, he realized now that he could be the dad that shapes and impacts them for good. And he's doing that. He's doing that. It's often a way that people describe their experience when they put their trust in God, that they sense this overwhelming peace. For me, what that does is that helps me fight and conquer the dragons that are out there in the world. It helps me be able to get up and actually find purpose in the thing I'm doing. Whether it's changing nappies, or it's meeting with people who are struggling, or it's meeting with a mate, each and every action has a purpose now because of my faith. And the world and its problems, it's interesting as Sasha again described it to me, that once he recognized that all the world's problems are held by God and He will deal with them, he no longer felt anger anymore. He no longer felt fear. He could actually be part of the solution rather than staying cloistered up in his problems. Belief works. And my hope is that as you heard these two stories of many, many people, that you yourself will walk away going, what is my journey with God looking like? Am I personally experiencing His love for me? Do I recognize that it works and that it matters and that it is livable? Sasha gave his life to Jesus in baptism 2 months ago. I got to baptize him, and his whole thing was, coming from Germany, it's a bit of a cold, heartless country, but not like Tasmania. Tasmania is a lot better. But when he came to Australia, this is what he said. He wanted to get baptized in a beach. So we looked for a beach, and on the day, we found one, and it was storming. It's been storming like nothing else for the last 2 months. But on this particular day, sun's out, It was just a beautiful time. We got together, we watched him get baptized. He gave his life to Jesus, and he's not looking back. The last time I saw them, before I moved away from the Sunshine Coast, I sat down and asked his wife, because guys can talk themselves up, right? We can call a big show and make it all look good and whatnot. But I just pulled Tanya aside and said, Tanya, what do you think of the new Sasha? She says, I love it. He's a new man. That says a lot if a lady can say that about his husband. Both of them are on the journey with God. And I want to challenge you to think, where are you? Is there something that you personally are struggling with that you need to give to God? This week we're going to explore lots of different themes and ideas and challenges. But ultimately, this is the base level. Have you personally discovered the God that gave everything for you, who loves you and has a purpose for your life? I'll leave that one with you.